Whate'er thou art, act well thy part. President Nelson performed well his part. I want to share 3 things that he exemplified in his life that have helped me enormously and for which I will be forever grateful. Number 1, President Nelson invited us to take a careful look at how we treat our wives and the women in our lives. Now, we might think that we're pretty awesome, and there may be some truth to that, but I know of no one on the earth who has had such a perfect culture and discipline growing up that there was nothing he could improve upon with the treatment of his wife and other women in his life. And I suppose this applies to both ways in the spousal relationship, but this is what I have learned from him. He said, be her partner. Make it easy for her to want to be yours. I know he's modeled this in his own family and in the care and treatment of his wife and his 9 daughters and his new wife, Wendy. He's been an exemplary role model for the treatment of women. He also invited us to counsel together with our wives, saying, her input will improve your output. I have personally learned that this is true. A second thing President Nelson has taught me by his example is that the most important thing we can focus on in our lives is to do the will of our Heavenly Father. That is what President Nelson has spent his life doing. There are any number of passions and interests and strange spirits in the world that could draw our attention away from what matters most. But the Lord's prophet has been very clear. He said the gathering of Israel is the most important work taking place here on earth today. Armed with that knowledge, equipped with that testimony and that example, what changes will you make? A third thing that President Nelson has taught me is that peacemaking leads to inspired solutions. I've learned this personally, that the people that we might demean or condemn or be tempted to write off as an enemy might be the very people who hold crucial pieces of the puzzle that we need in order to have a more complete, fuller, and richer understanding of our Heavenly Father, of ourselves, and of each other, and of our purpose here in this life and throughout eternity. We can't see the big picture unless we work together with others. President Nelson has modeled this in his capacity as the prophet with his 2 counselors in the first presidency. None of them insist that they have all the answers. The Lord intended that we would work together, and the first presidency and Quorum of the 12 Apostles are models for this kind of wholesome collaboration and mutual participation. If God wanted to give us all the answers, he could, but then we wouldn't grow. I think it will take a very long time, perhaps eternity, for us to unpack everything that God has given us through his servant, Russell M. Nelson. I will be eternally grateful for President Nelson for modeling these virtues, these attributes, and showing us the way to behave as disciples of Christ too. What part will you play